Hello, everybody. Welcome. Sorry, we're a couple of minutes late. Michael was still having issues with his technology. So, first of all, we need to apologise because this time last week, Michael's power went out. So that was the end of our Facebook Live, wasn't it, Michael?
That and you had a moment, so that was the end of that. So
Yeah. So there we go. So we are going to repeat what we started last week, and what we're going to be talking about is how to minimise the effect of divorce on children. Because as you and I both know, having gone through the process, it's if you deal with it in a way that's not appropriate, it can have a disastrous effect on children, can't it? It really can. So, Michael, how many years have you worked in the child psychologist, family therapist space?
well, that's a really good question. Specialising in this area, would have to say, I think it's now 8.
8 years, yeah. And in
Yep.
that time period, how many clients do you think you've seen?
Oh, cool. To be perfectly honest, I think the numbers would be triple figures.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. And over the last couple of years, it's got worse. One would imagine.
There's more presentation. I mean, if we're being honest about life as we know it, even though we're level orange, the last 2 years have had a significant range of unexpected impacts, of which, of course, relationships, family dynamics have borne the brunt of those changes because we didn't know in advance that they were coming. We couldn't prepare, and then all of a sudden, 2 years later now, and it is actually more than 2 years, 2 years and a month, that we've been in a situation of managing this new normal. And for kids going through that, on top of not being at school, not seeing their friends the same way, family dynamics in terms of how parents relate or don't relate, change of relationship statuses for parents, of course, kids are bearing the brunt of all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Being involved in adult issues when they shouldn't be, knowing stuff that they shouldn't. So let's talk about it in a general terms. How does divorce affect children?
Yeah, no, I think if we talk about change, unexpected transition, children initially can easily think, well, is it my fault? Am I part of this? So there's doubt. But then there are practical things. Where will I live? Am I going to go to the same school? Will I still have my friends? Are mummy and daddy still talking? They don't understand. They really just don't know what's going to happen, because all of the things that we're used to tomorrow might be different. So I think that's the biggest single thing, is the difference, the change, the unexpectedness, because mum and dad have been the goalposts of life as we know it, and the security guards, and keeping us safe and managing this scary thing called the world. And kids need to be reassured that whatever happens for them, mum and dad are still on the same page for them. I mean, mum and dad may not necessarily agree anymore, but in terms of welfare for a child, we kind of have to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the biggest concerns for children is, I'm going to have 2 bedrooms, isn't it? And what does that what does that mean for me? And when I speak to clients about it, we frame it in a really positive way. And I suggest to clients that, why don't you take them out to Look Sharp or wherever it may be and give them $10 or $20 to spend on doing up their new bedrooms?
Having them being actively involved in the change process will certainly help. Now, if we're talking with neurotypical kids, that's kind of cool. And the caution here is, if we're dealing with neurodiverse, we need to manage that very carefully, simply because that change is quite confronting, and the impacts for those children or kids who think that way or feel that way, we do need to think very carefully and think very differently about what is it that they need to feel safe and secure. Being part of the change transition and whatever else is going to happen, always a good thing, but how we deliver that, however we coach that, makes a big difference between success and failure, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
But I do like the idea of children being part of it, and this might mean that we've got matching toys in both places, potentially, or some of our toys come with us. Logistically, it's a bit difficult, but it's doable. But we do want to have space that feels, from a child's perspective, feels like I'm here. I am part of this. This is my room, rather than, oh, that's a room that I stay in at mum's place, or that's a room I stay in at dad's place. Ideally, we don't want to encounter a child who then thinks that way.
Yeah. So what should you say and do for your child versus what shouldn't you say and do during the
Good
process?
question. Yeah, no, I think when we come down to it, we are relaying facts about change, and we need to assure children that they're safe, they're going to be cared for, still love them unconditionally, even if they put crayon on the walls. But it might mean that the schedules change. We need to be really clear and talk about what this now looks like, even sitting down with them and giving them a calendar.
Buy-in from them. And
well, the thing is you're talking about agency for children, and parents, when they're managing stuff and they're managing their own things, it's not necessarily something that's front of mind. So it is kind of then saying, all right, I've got a schedule. I might have a wall planner. It might be this color for this day, this color for that day, so I know where I'm going to be. And it's kind of helpful because kids then see that, this is what's going on. Mum's talked to me about this and dad's talked to me about this, and they're on the same page. And I get that sense of connection that mum and dad are on the same page. Behind the scenes, mum and dad may not necessarily agree, but on the front of it, from a child's perspective, we are on the same page.
Yeah. There's things that shouldn't be discussed, aren't there? If someone's had an affair, adult matters, the financial aspects, all of those things are no-nos, aren't they?
Yeah. Imagine if your child's seven years old. Would you go and tell this story to a 7-year-old? Of course you wouldn't. Just because it's your child doesn't make it okay. And I say that kind of bluntly because we know that it does happen. But children are not negotiation pawns and communication vehicles. There are far better ways of managing that without children getting in the middle of adult stuff.
Yeah, they're not pawns, they're not messengers. So, the biggest thing that you advocate, and I do too, is do not disparage your ex in front of your children. I mean, that is number one fundamental, isn't it? Because that can have far-reaching effects on the children long term. If that
I go one stage further, and if something does come up, a child actually says something, we verbally support the other parent to the best of our ability, even if it's simply acknowledging of the truth. But we don't discuss the parental aspect of it. We're saying, Dad's stupid. Well, hang on. Dad might be thinking about this, and he might be thinking about that. We insulate that sense of security and trust a child has between a child and a parent. I'm assuming that's, trust issue hasn't been something that's been broken, and it's a separate conversation.
Yeah.
But we are trying to ensure and keep and preserve those gateposts and signposts and security barriers that mum and dad represent. So we need to support one another in that particular way so that the children have that sense of consistency, reliability, and, they're okay. Yeah. When they get older, they'll have bigger questions. They'll be able to explain it, but younger children, definitely not.
So how do children, I mean, obviously vast age range here, but how do children deal with stress or show stress in terms of
how much time we got for that?
I know, right? That's what I mean.
Yeah, stress is an interesting thing. And I think with the recent work in talking about mental health and well-being, there is the promotion awareness around various diagnoses, what stress is, what anxiety is. And the thing we need to be really careful about is when I hear younger children saying, I have an anxiety condition now because of this, I know fundamentally right then and there, that isn't true. What's happened, by and large, is they've picked up adult conversation which isn't appropriate to them. So we need to be really careful about what stress is and resulting conditions of how we feel, rather than putting labels on it. If I'm feeling, what is it I'm feeling? The moment we hear a child use what would normally be a diagnostic or an adult word, it's kind of a concern, because why are they having to think about that? So it begs a bigger question. However, coming back, stress and transition and change, it is stressful, absolutely. But we might notice things like change of eating patterns, change of sleeping patterns.
Wetting the bed?
Absolutely.
Mm.
We may notice other behavioral traits change, not wanting to read, not doing things at school, not wanting to spend time with a certain friend, not wanting to go to certain places. Anything that's different, we know what used to be. If there's a change, we sort of say, oh, okay. And we can very carefully inquire, hey, how you doing? What's going on? I've noticed we haven't seen this particular friend for a while. Should we invite them around this weekend? Have a play date? Something along those lines. And we try to encourage and normalize the changes. But in terms of what we're looking for, changes of behavior, things we say, things we do, the things we like, things we eat, how we sleep, going to school, getting in trouble at school perhaps. There's a whole range of things that are potential clues to the fact our child is feeling the weight of what is going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So dealing with issues, including stress at home and school, how do you deal with all these issues? It can be overwhelming, can't they?
Well,
Absolutely.
it can be, and essentially it's a conversation around, or ongoing conversations around, what is it that's happening. And when we talk about our sense of security and our sense of space where it is that we live, it's reaffirming that a child is loved, cared for, we're looking out for them. We still go to sporting events, we still go to parent-teacher evenings and all the rest of it. And hey, here's the thing. If both parents can park their stuff and do that together, that would be ideal. Not always plausible, but something to think about, because at the end of the day, we are looking after, collectively, this child or children so that they feel okay, minimizing the impact of what's going on, minimizing the sense of stress or lack of understanding, or having physiological reactions to the change or what's happening at home. So it does mean talking about the facts quietly, calmly, and always asking, it's okay to talk about how we feel. It's okay to mention, hey, I'm not sleeping well. If we're aware of it, that's fine. I don't want to go to this friend's place that particular day. Okay. Thinking about how to manage this transition and change so the child feels safe and secure.
Yeah. And one of the biggest things is actually let the school know what's happening, in terms of your scenario, that we are in the process of separating, or having a trial separation, or keeping them updated, because that gives them a better understanding, and they can absolutely, on a daily or a weekly basis or whatever, keep you updated in terms of any sort of behavioural changes with children.
Yeah, I think it's important to open that avenue, but a word of caution. Mainstream schools, teachers are dealing with a great deal of change at the moment.
Yeah.
And if their ratio is 1 to 30 plus in some classes, in some schools, that is the case. We need to be mindful that we might want a weekly check-in, but then again, 30 other parents may do as well. So yes, our child is a priority. Yes, our child is important, but we have to work with the teachers and the school, keeping them informed, yes, but we need to be really careful about any additional demands, because the other thing is we also want our child to feel that for school, nothing's changed. Our teachers are the same. Our friends at schools are the same. We're doing the same things at school. Things are the same. So that's all well and good. But yes, communicating with the school is a good idea. Go to the teacher first, send a quick email, just the facts. Hey, this is what we're going through. This is what we're navigating, just for your information.
Yeah. So Michael, what are your 3 top tips for anyone who's contemplating separating or in the middle of it, either amicable or
The top tip, Bridget, is obviously talk to you first, right?
yeah, well, that's right. It goes without saying, doesn't it?
Do I get checks for that? Do I get the pass?
Yeah, you do. Absolutely. Gold medal. Yeah.
Yeah, I think having a plan, I think parents need to understand what this is going to look like in practical terms and be secure around and confident around what that's going to look like, because children do not want mixed messages and cannot manage another uncertainty or stressor on top of whatever it is happening. Consulting professionals in part of the process, we might think, oh, things will be fine. But it's one of those things in hindsight where we go back, oh, I should have. I don't really like that word, but when we learn from experience, we notice that, and this is the whole inclusive journey which well-being and mental health talks about, is what is it that I'm doing so that I am supported, because I am a parent, an employee, employer, I'm this, I'm that, but I'm managing all these hats at once whilst going through something else on top of COVID, on top of. And you know what? As wonderful and splendid as we are as human beings, there are times when we need to go, you know what? I need to ask this friend for this. Don't be afraid to do that. And it's the same for asking professionals. How do I manage this well, so then I don't have to then worry about it for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks? Because divorce and separation can take a long time. Going through the court process in New Zealand isn't a simple, straightforward, I'll do it next week. It takes months. So this is something we need to think about in advance, getting professionals on board in advance. Good idea.
And actually avoiding court at all costs if you can.
Absolutely.
You can sit around the kitchen table process and work it out, or work with the likes of Michael and I through the process. It's simply for so many reasons, which I don't even need to outline because everyone knows them, that keep it out of court. That's it. There are alternative, better and more positive ways to deal with your separation. Well, thank you, Michael, for joining us. We will put Michael's details up. So if anyone would like to contact him directly, or you can contact me for his details. I think next Facebook Live, Michael, I think we should drill down and focus on exactly what people should say and do with their children through the process, and what they shouldn't say and shouldn't do. How does that sound?
Maybe some practical parameters, some go-tos.
Absolutely.
Perhaps. But I mean, for anybody out there who's going through it right now, just the only word of caution I have is, if you're in doubt, ask. If you're not sure, email. It doesn't matter. Don't feel that you can't, because this is what this service is all about, is providing support for people who are unsure.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we write scripts on how to tell your partner you want to separate, how to tell the children that you're getting separated. We work through, we've got a lot of coaching programs in relation to that as well. And so there really is a right way of doing this and a wrong way of doing it. And for us, and I know Michael's aligned with me, it's separating with dignity. And that's the way it needs to be for everyone.
Yeah, no, that's a really good catchphrase. I like that. I think it's valid and appropriate. Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Michael. Great that we didn't have any power outage today, and look forward to.
You didn't have a hair disaster. Well done.
Not today.
These things are important on top of everything else.
No wet hair after RPM. So you let me know. We will talk offline, but we will definitely be back on. Bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.